Anthony, it's been almost a week and I'm still recovering from Alice.
Because you're young and you're full of vigor.
That's what people say all the time.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey everybody, welcome back to No Vacancy Live. That's Nathan Melchiori. I'm Glenn Hausman. We're back live in the studios. Yeah, we had a show Thursday, but we were also super busy over at that Alice conference last week. If you haven't checked out some of the short interviews I've done, check out novacancynews.com. Anthony, so great to see you. You're talking about vigor. What happened to Vim? They used to be best of friends. You had Vim, you had vigor, you had all of it together. I don't hear that anymore.
You know what's interesting is I just realized we haven't been together on the podcast in a week or so.
Thursday. We were on Thursday.
Did I not miss Thursday? Was I here Thursday?
We're here. Yeah, we did the wrap up with Michael Schindler, which is a great show, everybody. Check that out.
How did I do, by the way? Did I do good?
I thought it was one of your best performances, although I think today might even be better. We'll see.
Actually, it's funny. I spoke to Michael yesterday. He's a very kind human being.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, one of the things, Anthony, we're still seeing, I think, a little bit of supply chain issues. It's not in front and center of the conversation, but that seems to be it. So I thought it'd be fun today, and you thought it'd be fun because you brought this idea to the table, really about talking to another company about what it's about outside the hotels, right? Arenas, venues, airports, all of that kind of stuff. And I think it'll be kind of cool to have that conversation today.
Well, yeah, and the person we're about to have on is he's the guy. Like he probably purchases more than most companies, probably top 10 companies combined.
I don't know. My wife buys a lot from Amazon every day, so it might be close.
It's so funny. Early this morning, I was having breakfast with my friend.
All right.
He said something. I said, the reason Amazon works is because it's easy. I said, time me. It took me 26 seconds to buy him a bag of coffee.
Wow.
26 seconds.
That's crazy. And I'm sure the good folks over at Delaware North make it just that simple. Let's bring on Mr. Stephen Harrington. Stephen, you're Chief Supply Chain Officer with Delaware North. How are you today? Great to see you.
I'm doing great in sunny Buffalo.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question for you. Is that Congressman Santos behind you?
No. Actually, I got to tell you. So the one that I think you can see is Chef Carlos Gaitan, who is the only Michelin star Mexican chef.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty cool. Hey, listen, Stephen, if you got a good hookup for me, I'm looking for some good mole recipes, something that's very Oaxacan, but not focused on cacao. All right. So that's my big assignment for you, because we like to give our guests homework. That's really what we're all about here.
That whole sentence was, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. But that's anyway. Thank you.
Mole is a traditional Mexican dish coming from the Oaxaca region.
Got it.
That's
so we were at a conference. I think I was speaking at the conference, and I met Stephen. And Stephen, everybody seemed to be wanting to speak to Stephen, and I got to speak to Stephen. I was like, oh my god, he's got the coolest job in the world. I thought I had the coolest job in the world.
Yeah. So, Stephen, is your job the coolest job in the world? Yes, we ask all the hard-hitting questions on No Vacancy Live.
Yeah, no, I would say it's interesting because I sit on the leadership team for Delaware North, and my peers are presidents of the different businesses. So, you talked about sports service and airports and gaming and patina. And I get to sit right at the middle of all of that. So everything going on in every business, it just makes it so much fun.
Dude, speaking about sitting in the middle, you just came back from the Australian Open. Because you work with venues down under there, so that is a pretty cool experience. What was that like going to Australia?
Before we go forward, Stephen, can you tell everybody what you do first?
Yeah, so head of supply chain for Delaware North, so that includes all of culinary. So actually behind me, the gray-haired man is Chef Lou, who runs culinary for the corporation. Procurement, sustainability, and all design and construction in the U.S., Australia, and UK.
That's it.
That's it.
And just tell people a couple of the venues that you work with.
Yeah, so we own TD Garden and the Boston Bruins. We do MetLife Arena. We do the Buffalo Bills Stadium. We do the Australian Open. We do the largest arena in the Southern Hemisphere, which is Melbourne Cricket Grounds. Hotels, casinos. We just finished building a $330 million casino hotel. And obviously the airports and then Patina Restaurant, which is really a lot of Disney.
Okay, next time I'll just ask you, what don't you do?
Yeah.
So what were you in Australia for?
So I have a supply chain culinary team that works for me down under. It was a big time of year for us because the Australian Open obviously is a huge event for us. We also have a private resort down there that is literally an island that has no other residential, no other activity at all, which is pretty challenging from a lodging standpoint. And we have a casino also down there and run a couple of airports.
Wow. And so did you go to the Australian Open?
I was at the Australian Open 3 days. I was there Super Saturday, which is really the biggest day. So they had over 90,000 people there.
Woo! Who won?
I'd say the customers who are buying the fine food products supplied by Delaware North, but
yeah,
that's just me.
Krachek.
I've disconnected Anthony with that comment. Go on.
No, so it was really interesting because it was actually the guy who last year they didn't allow to play at the Australian Open because he didn't
the individual who didn't
get,
yeah. He didn't get vaxxed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was tough actually because the top two players on the men's side got beat early on. And a lot of Australians got beat early on. So it actually impacted the crowd. So if you're thinking about serving all the people that are coming, when things like that happen, it really impacts you.
Right. So you got to figure out the right amount and balance it properly because you don't want to have way too much left over. That's not good for the bottom line or for the environment. But if you don't have enough, then you're missed out on opportunity and sales and all of that kind of stuff. So how do you even figure that out? You go into like a Las Vegas bookie and saying, hey, what's the Australians' chance of making it to the third round? How's that work?
And by the way, it was Djokovic that won.
Djokovic, yes, thank you. So yeah, I mean, historically the forecasts are pretty decent. So normally you're going to be within 10% and you've got to be flexible even up to the day of. Another event that we do here in the US is the PGA Championship every year. Yep. And something like that can be majorly impacted by weather. The Australian Open was also impacted because they had one day that it was over 100 degrees and then the next day it rained all day long.
Oh. So, so you also not only do you have to like figure out what the crowds are going to be, but if it's going to be rainy and chillier, you may have to say we need more of X product like hot chocolate or something like that just to grab. But on a hot day, you probably have to think, oh, we need a lot more bottles of water or something like that. Right, Stephen?
Or bottles of beer, right? When it comes to a lot of the sporting
events. I think you always need more of that.
But what's interesting is people take for granted what you do. And like, if you think about, if we don't have supply chain and we don't have the right resources, if you're in a war and you can't feed your army, if you can't, if they don't have water and they don't have what they need and supplies, you're probably going to lose the war. And I think you're seeing that kind of now. And also, like, even like in any world, any country, the number one thing is if you need food, you need water. And the person that runs all that is responsible really for the success of not only what's happening, but really success of the people. So you have an important job. What's the number one? We talk about supply chain issues, like Glenn said before, but where are we now with supply chain issues? Last year, say it was a 10 bad. Where is it now?
If you say 10 bad, I would say we're 3 or 4. I think things, they definitely have improved. We had, to your point, we had times last year where we didn't know if some product was going to show up. And if it doesn't show up, you can't make the sales, right? And so tremendously challenging. Now it's more uncommon for us not to get things. So it's much better.
Well, I've got a garage full of toilet paper. I was doing some hedging back in 2020. If y'all need some extra,
what's the biggest challenge now?
I'm going to say delivery consistencies. It still is there.
Consistency and frequency, or product quality?
product quality,
Mhm.
right? Especially on, I'm going to say, produce, fruits, and vegetables. That has
Right.
been a big challenge. I would actually say our biggest challenge has been what we call back of house staffing,
That's
which,
not a surprise.
yeah, we've had, the front of house, I would say, has gotten the benefit of all the price increases over the last year. And a
Right.
lot of people are paid on tips. And so they're actually doing very
Right.
well and they love these jobs. The back of the house hasn't benefited as much from that. So that's been a big challenge over the last, year and a half.
It certainly has. And let me just explain to our viewers that may be new to this scenario exactly what's going on. In the restaurant business, there's always been a schism between back of house and front of house. Back of house gets paid an hourly wage. And when you have a popular restaurant, the people up front are getting tips and making a whole lot more money. And we've seen a huge trend, Stephen, over the last 4 years, you could confirm, where people are just saying, forget the back of house. I know I went to school to be a chef, but I can make X amount more as a bartender or a server. So I'm going that direction, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think they found all sorts of alternatives during the pandemic when the jobs became unavailable.
Right.
And it's been really tough to get those folks back.
Yeah, same story they've been telling in hospitality. Anthony,
Is there any sharing of tips where the back of the house will get a percentage of those tips?
There is, and it depends on the location. I would say the best thing that we've done over the last year is we created a culinary program internally that we call chefs,
right,
that literally pull people out of the business and give them a very high level of training that frankly they could take anywhere, but we hope that they stay with us.
And so how's that work? I'm not really understanding what you just said.
So we partnered with the Culinary Institute of America and developed an actual training program for, I'm going to say cooks, early on chefs, to develop their skills so that they can become certified within our organization. That gives them the opportunity to actually elevate within our organization, or they could take it elsewhere.
Now, do you work with like the Navy and the military to find those kind of cooks? Because my friend was a cook on a submarine, and he's now running probably the most exclusive golf course in the world, or at least in America, making insane amount of money. And he's been doing it for 25 years, 30 years after he got out of the military. Are you looking at that kind of person?
Well, so I don't know if you remember, I'm a veteran too.
Right.
So we absolutely target and look for veterans.
Right.
I wouldn't say we're direct partnership with any of the branches. So.
Were you on a submarine too?
No, I was a Navy Seabee, which is why I run the construction group too.
Oh, okay. Got it. Understood. But thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours.
So before you started in this part of the industry and before the military came out of the military, what was your first job?
I worked for an athletic apparel manufacturer in North Carolina.
And what were you appareling?
We were doing sports apparel, so T-shirts, sweatshirts printed with colleges, universities, beach resorts.
I'd like to make a shout out to everyone that's selling T-shirts. We've got to get back to the beefy T-shirt quality, especially at concerts. If you're going to be charging $50 for a T-shirt, it's got to be able to get through the wash more than once or twice. Well, disposable clothes, I'll go to Old Navy. Sorry, Stephen. Got to get it.
No. Well, Anthony, I like this. My second job was I worked for the largest intimate apparel manufacturer in the world, and I was buying $1 million a week of stretch fabric.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. But it's funny. It's interesting. I went to a Billy Joel concert. My daughter was in first grade. So we're going back, I don't know, 15 years, 16 years. I wear the Billy Joel shirt probably 5 times a week around my house. And it hasn't faded. I mean, it's too big on me. It's stained with Clorox. It's a mess. I look terrible, but it is the most comfortable shirt I own. And to your point, Glenn, it held up.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I spent $55 for the T-shirt, I didn't mind.
Yeah, exactly. So, Stephen, I want to talk a little bit more about your career journey and stuff like that. But there are certain things that are going out right now with the supply chain. I'm curious to see about how you and how Delaware North kind of pivots in these things. The most important thing is the egg crisis that we've been going through. Does that sort of a thing change the way you are promoting menu changes and thoughts on that, or do you just charge more for it and that's the end of the day? Could you give us a little more context on how that works?
Yeah. So are you talking about just the supply or everybody?
Yeah, I'm
going
just thinking about it. When you
cage-free?
have a particular good that changes prices so dramatically, as we've seen with the example of eggs, for example, over the last couple of months, how does that affect your decision-making process and consumer demand, and how you kind of bring all those together?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, even with, I'm going to say product supply, on top of that, a lot of corporations in the US, especially on the hospitality side, have had to go cage free,
Right.
which there's even less of a supply for. And I would say, we look at, a multiple approaches on how to manage that, right? So, can you change portion size? Are there alternatives? Do you have to change the menu price? And for each one of them, it becomes different. And in some
Right.
cases,
I mean, everyone, if you get the American breakfast, you're still going to get your 2 eggs. And that's something that's always going to be there.
well, but I will say there's been some times over the last year where there's some items that we've just chosen to take it off the menu because pricing went up so much for a short period of time that you just had to pull it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever take eggs off the menu?
No,
You can't do that.
No.
That's too much of a
I
commodity
know,
product, I would think. But
No.
But I'm thinking about a product that you could take off the menu, and nothing's jumping to mind right away. But I know there's lots of them.
yeah,
English muffins. People take
actually calamari got taken off the menu for a while.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
And that's something that people have come to expect. But if it's not there, you're not like, But if the burger wasn't there, you'd be like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
So everybody knows when they go to these venues and they go to get a Coke at a ball game, it costs $637. Is it people still price resistant, or it's just like, you know what? I'm watching, like when I go to a movie, you can charge me $100 for popcorn. I'm paying for it. I can't watch a movie in a movie theater without extra butter on my popcorn and have popcorn. I can't. I have to leave if I don't have popcorn. So, and I'm willing to pay whatever it is. Is there people just roll their eyes and pay it, or is there a lot of price resistance?
I think even still now, and I know we're early on, everybody's talking about a recession, but we're not seeing the price resistance. I'll share, we have one venue that, our customers coming in didn't have any complaints about the pricing whatsoever. And we think there's still more price elasticity there.
Although I got to say, for the last 20 years running, the local news channels here in New York always send somebody to the U.S. Open to talk about how shocking the prices are there every single year. But they're still selling and selling out every single year. I got to tell you, guys, I don't think I'm price resistant as much as I am line resistant, Stephen, right? And I say this because I've seen a lot of new technology come into airports and arenas and sporting venues and all of that kind of stuff. That's really, I think, solving that particular issue for someone like me. If I'm popping out in the middle of a jam during a concert or between plays, I love going to hey, grab a beer from the fridge, self-serve myself and get out. Is this something that you're seeing you're moving your company to in a more meaningful way?
Oh, huge. So self-checkout, kiosks, walkout technology, airports, sports venues, that absolutely. And each sports venue, each stadium's owned by somebody different. So there's all sorts of different technologies that are getting rolled out.
I'm sorry. I was in the airport. I was just in the airport. I don't know, some airport. And I walked through, a regular newsstand to get my water and what I usually get. And it was an Amazon. It was a Hudson newsstand, but it was using Amazon technology. Yep. And there was a young lady there and said, go through that lane, please. I went through that lane. She goes, just take a bag, put everything in, and just I had to put my credit card in before I walked in. Yep. I walked around the store and I walked out. And it's the first time I've done that. I know they're testing all over the country.
Yeah, there's one at Resorts World.
Yeah, it was very easy and it was cool.
We have one at TD Garden.
That's cool.
Right? Yeah, so you can just walk in, grab the beverages you want, and just walk out. Right. And I think actually the airports, I think, are going to be an area that you'll see a lot more of that over the next couple of years because it's so hard to get labor into the airport. When you think about, they have to leave early to get to the airport. They have to park, 10 miles away, shuttle in, go through security. Labor in the airport is extremely challenging. I think that'll be a big change.
Yeah, and when I looked up, when I was in the Hudson News, I looked up and it was literally hundreds of cameras. Because I asked the lady, I said, how do you do this? And she goes, look up. And I looked up, there's just hundreds of cameras.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there's, certainly Amazon, but, we have a MasterCard walkout that's out in San Diego. So we're trying some different technologies.
And I was talking to my friend. He goes, this technology, AI, Chat GDP, everything's taken over people's jobs. I was like, you know what? People don't want these jobs anymore.
A little show note, ChatGPT. We're going to have an in-depth discussion on February 23rd with Puzzle Partners and Alan Young. That'll be a really good.
Are we really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did that come about?
Oh, we've been working on it for a couple of weeks.
Anyway, we can go. We can talk about that later.
We'll deal with that on February 23rd. Today we're talking.
Well, maybe I'll bring it up anyway, Glenn, later.
He's incorrigible, Stephen, as you've noticed already.
Stephen, are you using AI like Chat GPT in your business at all?
We're testing it in some areas, but very early on.
How are you utilizing technology to make your job more precise?
That's a good question. So I would tell you, it's interesting when you think about the size of our corporation. So
Right.
$4 billion in revenue. When I joined here 6 years ago, we placed purchase orders for all of our goods. Some of them were fax, some of them were phones, some were on systems. So over the last few years, we actually went on one platform throughout our entire corporation that has given us a tremendous amount of data that obviously we can leverage with our partners to get better pricing, but we can also leverage it internally to ensure compliance.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's like, think about when we were growing up, right? When you needed to go somewhere, you stop in the gas station and get a map. And now you tell a kid, it's like, we didn't have that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're going to tell kids in 5-10 years, well, we used to do everything for $4 billion worth of revenue, everything by hand and fax and emails. And how'd you control that? It was almost unfathomable that you would do that. And even now, it's only been a couple of years for you, and you lived on the old platform or the old system. Like, isn't it mind-boggling?
Yeah, the data, right? I mean, it's amazing how useful the data is. And again, I'm going to say using it externally and internally has been a huge benefit financially for the corporation.
Yeah, and I love looking at those kind of reports because you can literally in a second say, why do we have just say sausage, Italian sausage? Why do we have Italian sausage at the games they don't sell? You can tell that in 2 seconds.
Yeah, but I could also bet you could tell information like, hey, all of a sudden people seem to really care about avocado toast. We should, have a strategy behind that sort of a thing. So I bet you're able to say, oh, we could put XYZ thing into a stadium or arena because maybe you've detected something in the data that shows people are gravitating more towards that particular food item, right?
Yes and no. I mean, actually, you have to get that data from a separate system, which is going to be your point of sale system, right? To tell you sales, because if I ran out of inventory of avocados, I wouldn't actually know except for the unit telling me based on the data. I just know how much was used. Right.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So can you do me a favor, Stephen?
Yeah.
Can you get the fad of avocado toast out of the world, please?
I think the price of avocados did that for the most part.
Get an avocado and have toast. Thank you.
Yeah.
My daughter's a huge fan, so.
We don't want a rift to come between you two guys over here. Maybe we just need to calm it down, move on to another.
Well, the first time I had it was like, it's avocado with toast. And people are like, what do you think it is? I said, why? Like, people have been having avocado and toast forever. Like, why is it a thing? Anyway, I still love your daughter. She's fine.
All right. So, Stephen, what do you think now is the biggest opportunity out there for a company such as yours when it comes to your department figuring stuff out and utilizing all of this technology and really being a good pair to what you see out there with consumer tastes?
The biggest opportunity, I'm going to say, is overall partnership. And I'm going to say whether it's partnership with our supply partners or partnership internally. One of the things I'm going to say, preaching to my team is, if we can work more closely together with the other functions to drive more value for the organization, it's going to be so much better for us as a whole. And I think we're seeing some of that benefit.
Yeah. That's interesting over there as well. All right. So
hold on. Sorry, I got to say, the other thing we did that was actually really impressive, and actually the picture behind me comes from it. At the end of last year, we invited our top 150 vendor partners to Kennedy Space Center that we run.
Yep.
And we had a partner summit that described to them what true partnership was like. And this was our attempt to partner with them, including we had one of our CEOs at that meeting to share with them our story, how our year went, what our future objectives were, to truly make it a partnership. Because I think too often in procurement supply chain, they talk partnership loosely. And we want to show that it's a real thing.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right. So Dr. Producer Suzanne is saying last weekend there's a big event at Daytona with the Rolex race. Are you finding that there's spillover between racing and the card club? Are people going like racing, then come and make bets on the horses, the dogs or the poker or all that kind of stuff? And how do you think about, supply chain when it comes to two events that are next to each other? Because you said before we went on air that you kind of like the gateway to events. So how does all of that kind of work?
Yeah, so I'm actually not sure related to the dog race down there.
That's all right. Make up something else. You can go with any example you'd like.
So I'll go with sports betting. So, a lot of people are seeing sports betting online, right, and they're saying, isn't that taking people out of the casinos? And actually, I would tell you that people want to do their sports betting in a casino at a bar. And so that certainly is bringing people in. Yeah.
I bet. Yeah, this sports betting thing is really taking off big time. Anthony?
Yeah, and I tried it. I just can't get into it. I did it with a football game, and once I'm sports betting, I'm not thinking about the game. I'm thinking about my bet. And I'm just like, you know what? And I think I bet $20. So it wasn't like I had $2,000, $5,000, $100,000 on the game. I bet $20, and all I was thinking about is, I need another this, and I need that. And I was like, I'm out. But sports betting is the future, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Steven?
Well, the interesting thing is, I would tell you that sports betting, we're hoping that people actually do sports betting in our casino so that they actually do the rest of the things in the casino, not the sports betting.
Right.
Right. And I think that, like you said, anybody I know that's a sports bettor is like, they're always running to a casino. I'm like,
Yeah.
you can do that on an app, right?
Yeah. Yep. You could sit at home and do that all day long.
Yeah. It used to be called the bookie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I had hair, I used to work on the Upper West Side of Manhattan at the Lucerne, and I used to get my hair cut down in this brownstone in the basement. And Grandma was in the back. Grandma from Cuba was in the back, and she had all the envelopes, and she was the bookie. And I asked the guy, I was just like, as I'm about to ask you, he goes, really? I was like, never mind. And I was like, okay, I get it. Grandma's the bookie.
That's excellent. So, Steven, I got a couple of questions for you about the Patina restaurant group. First of all, at Epcot, Via Napoli is one of the most popular restaurants over there. Impossible. You guys opened up Space 220 last year, which I have yet to eat in that. But I also want to give a good shout out to Morimoto Asia over at Disney Springs, which I've eaten at. Have you had a chance to go to do that Space 220 thing? It seems kind of cool to be able to take an elevator and eat dinner 220 miles above Earth, because that's totally really what's happening.
Yeah, no. So I've eaten at all of them, right? So even remember on a construction side, my team builds them all. So I'm there while it's actually taking place.
Dude, the design of the Edison is gorgeous, which is also at Disney Springs.
It is. Space 220, I'll tell you a little story. So when we first opened it up and had, employees and friends that could come in, there was a little boy that I want to say was 7 or 8 years old. And when he took the elevator up into the restaurant, he became so upset and was crying. They had to literally open up the door and take him out a back exit so that he would calm down. So I don't want to ruin it for folks, but people would be surprised how much they actually move on the elevator.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So there's a screen above you and a screen below you, and you can see yourself kind of rising up the 220 miles up to the space station. And it's kind of reminiscent, I understand, of the old technology that they had in the living seas, the hydrolators, where they would simulate you going all the way underwater. But that's just what I heard. I haven't experienced it myself.
But don't they have that at Top of the Rock too, that technology, in Rockefeller Center?
Yeah.
They have that kind of technology.
Yes, but that's moving. That's not moving as much. It's only going up 70 floors instead of 220 miles.
Wow. So you go 220 miles. Wow.
That's
cool.
exactly right.
Not a spacesuit.
Yeah.
So the thought is that it's actually on a tether to Earth, and the
Mhm.
space station is 220 miles above Earth.
Yeah, it's really cute. It's a really great idea. And Anthony, you go in there and all the walls are giant screens that appears like you're in space. And there's the way they did the technology with the screens is there's multiple things going on. So you have stuff in the foreground and the earth and stuff in the background, and it's like you're rotating. It's like really freaking.
Well, you know,
cool
Stephen,
looking.
you know, you have so many, like you said, the CEO of this division and that division. There's so many different people in your organization. We would love to come down and whether it be there or somewhere else and do other interviews live from any of your venues. So please keep us in mind.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'd love to. Yeah.
So, Stephen, what else do we need to know about what you're going through every day? We talked about, supply chain. We talked about some of the staffing issues that your partners are having, that sort of thing. What are you most excited about then going forward for Delaware North as a company, maybe for yourself as a career-minded professional?
I think the organization, I was talking to somebody this morning, actually Anthony said it too, is it's just a fun business to be part of. And, certainly, I always tell people during the pandemic, we were a $4 billion company. And within 3 weeks, we went to virtually zero, except for the handful of people that were going to airports.
Yeah.
But the corporation has come fully back and is back reinvesting in new businesses. We just bought a hotel. We announced it at the beginning of the year, the Squire Hotel out in the Grand Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
We're opening up new locations in the airports. The technology that you talked about is just so exciting because, it's all new and different.
Why are companies like yours buying hotels? It's atypical of a company like yours to buy these venues. Why is that?
Yeah, but so the hotels that we're buying, remember, are gateways to typically national parks. So we operate in national parks. So like we do all of the retail and a lot of the food and beverage inside Yellowstone Park, but we also own 5-6 hotels outside of Yellowstone. So we own the assets, and within the park, we actually have contracts. And so,
so my question to you is, do you also do the food and beverage for Jellystone Park? And are you worried about bears stealing picnic baskets?
we don't do Jellystone.
Okay, just checking. Hey kids, check out Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Yeah, so it's interesting also that the national parks, when you think about during the pandemic, the amount of demand that went to the national parks has been huge and has continued. But the other thing that's impacted us is weather, right? So I don't know if you guys saw, but Yellowstone, the northern rim of Yellowstone, flooded last year and basically shut down half the park. Mm-hmm. We have fires every year that end up shutting us down for a period of time. So again, from a logistics challenge and supply chain, getting stuff there when those things are going on continue to be a challenge.
And I'd imagine sustainability in your business is critical. So I'd imagine there's a whole, division of sustainability. So when you're thinking about products and different venues, how much do you start with? How do we put that? What kind of container we put that in? How long does it last? Like, how's that work?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I would tell you, if you go back 5-10 years ago, it was very focused on parks and resorts, right? You think about the national parks. Now we run Climate Pledge Arena, right? Which is all about sustainability. So everything we're doing. The airports are coming to us with ideas. We partner with both Pepsi and Coke. Pepsi and Coke have huge initiatives. Mm-hmm. Every client that we're even doing an RFP for, looking at, is asking about what we're doing from a client standpoint. TD Garden, one of the new Boston Celtics players that joined, one of his questions was he wanted to know what TD Garden and Delaware North was doing from a sustainability standpoint.
Wow. Before he came on board.
That's pretty interesting. And
right after you came on.
When you look at it, like the other day I was seeing something about prescription bottles, and somebody created something that we're going to get rid of all these plastic prescription bottles because there's billions of them every year. And he had this container that's not plastic, whatever it is. I didn't really look at it. But I was just thinking, it's like, oh my God, how many of those bottles, are just in landfills, and it's just crazy. You don't think about it until you think about it.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because, I would say California and Massachusetts tend to be on the cutting edge as far as regulation controlling that. And because we operate in both of those states, it requires us as a company across the US to maintain, that standard.
Right. That's kind of where that expression, where California goes, so does the nation, right? Because if you want to operate in that state, you might as well just change everything to make it a little bit simpler. Interesting enough, you folks are really making an effort by 2025 with your Green Path program out there. For example, right now you're looking for 100% cage-free eggs. By then, you're already at 92% in the U.S. for that. The pork, you're looking to eliminate gestation crates from the supply chain by 2025. Same thing with other elements. You got rid of styrofoam by 2019. Coffee and tea is all sourced through Rainforest Alliance or USDA certified organic. A lot of great things that you seem to be doing as well. And also really focused on broiler chickens and other stuff like that too, to make it healthier for everybody.
Yeah, and the one you missed was the last straw.
I like that. And by the way, Stephen, just so you know, Glenn is obviously very articulate and smart, but all that information was given to him on a link through our great, incredible.
That's why I said Suzanne is on top of the game.
Producer Suzanne.
I'm not taking credit for that. Oh, look, my favorite friend, Scam Likely, is calling me again on the phone.
So I'm getting more and more of those. So what is a ballpark? Let's just take a regular Fenway or just a regular ballpark, Yankee Stadium, for instance. What does that look like 10 years from a food and beverage standpoint? Are we basically just walking into places, putting our credit card and walking out and self-serving, and there's all those, for lack of a better word, counters or kiosks, whatever you call them, where everybody stands behind and there's a grill and everything else? Is that kind of gone and the kitchen is in the back and nobody sees anybody? Like, what do you think in 10 years?
Yeah, I think it becomes challenging just from a cost of infrastructure to build it. So I think it's going to take a while, but 10 years, I think we're going to see a lot more of it. The other challenge you're always going to have, and I think eventually we get to a solution around IDing people for alcohol, right?
Right.
Because even if you put those walkout technologies, you still have to have somebody there that's checking ID, where if you can do something else, right, some other type of scan that can validate that somebody's above age, then you can eliminate it even more.
There's got to be clear technology that you use in the airports. I mean, I am addicted to clear.
Well, when I was in Australia, I went to Marvel Stadium where they were having a cricket game. And while I was there, they told me that they had found 2 people in the stadium that the police were activated to get out because there were issues.
Right.
And it was all facial recognition software that's in the stadium that they find people, and they do that regularly.
Wow. Right. In Madison Square Garden, Dolan threw out the lawyer that was suing him because her daughter wanted to go to the game and she wasn't allowed to go to Madison Square Garden. So she put on the disguise, and their facial recognition found her and they threw her out.
Yeah. So I think the idea on alcohol becomes a challenge, but I think that we continue to move more and more to self-checkout and walkout technology.
Well, at most events that I go to that have that, you got to go get your bracelet, like at Jones Beach Amphitheater or whatever. So there's got to be some easy way, if you're already having someone check IDs, that instead of the bracelet, you get some sort of digital confirmation on your phone. And that's why I like Anthony's clear idea as well.
Well, I think what happens is your head turns red or blue or purple, and they know, okay, all the red people are good and all the blue people are bad.
Yeah, but they've also been doing like web apps so that you can place an order at a stand while you're sitting in your seat, so that when you get the 2 minutes that you want to run up and go grab something, you don't have to wait in line. You can get it once you're there.
Yeah, I would say 90% of the time I don't get anything. Unless I get there early and get in front of the line, I won't go because I'm not standing in line for an hour.
Exactly. So, Stephen, I know it may be too premature to ask you this question, but do you have any data or insights that say when you go to this type of methodology to serve people quicker, that maybe they'll spend more or order more throughout the day? Like maybe instead of getting 2 beers, they'll get 3 during the game, or is it just still anecdotal at this point?
No, I got a perfect example. So when northern rim of Yellowstone shut down, so basically they reduced the number of people that could go into the park by almost half.
Right.
We thought our retail stores would get crushed from a sales standpoint because only half the people were coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Once people realized that the park was mostly still open, still only half the people were coming in. But I've been to Yellowstone multiple times. In the past, you would have to wait in lines that are 30 people long to buy T-shirts and, little things. People were buying more because they didn't have to stand in line longer. And actually the numbers were almost equivalent to what they were before.
That's interesting.
I went to Penn State for something, and I was buying some Penn State stuff, and it got so crowded in there that I just took whatever we bought and left. If I could just hang out and and just shop regularly, I probably would have bought double.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we tried last year for the first time ever with the PGA Championship was an all-inclusive event. So your ticket, the purchase price of your ticket included all the food and non-alcoholic beverage you could drink. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you that the logistics around that, and I'll joke with you and say when Tiger Woods was walking by, a concession stand on the golf course, they just got flooded with people that are just walking through and just grabbing whatever they want and they walk out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The COVID was horrible. It was tragic. What it's forced us to do as businesses is something that you won't see for another 100 years. I don't think you will ever see the compression of thought at a necessity in business than you've seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah. One of our CEOs actually has said that it was probably the most expensive education that we ever had.
Right. But it was an education under stress.
Yeah.
And when it's that kind of stress and it's, there were stakes, like you said, zero, you went to zero basically. Yeah. And not only you went to zero as a company, but human beings went to zero because what are they going to do for their families, health benefits? So it was, I think out of that, great things will happen. It was unfortunate, but I really think you're starting to see things that were motivated that would have taken 10 years.
No, I totally agree. And to your point, even though our revenue went to zero, there were still a ton of fixed expenses that you continued to have to pay. Right.
So yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, fascinating stuff. So tell everybody what a Navy CB does.
So Navy CB, so it's SEABs. And then in the CVs, they actually say CB, which is Construction Battalion. So essentially, the CBs always would go with the Marines when they would move into new territories and actually create a base from nothing, whether it's runways or, places to stay. Great experience, long time ago.
Would you hang out with the Air Force guys who were the forward guys that would build the airports and the navigation towers, or no?
No, we were actually mostly with the Marines. We always used to joke that there's only two people that Marines like out of the Navy. One's a CB and the other's a corpsman.
And that's true. Yeah. Because when they saw Air Force, when I was in Honduras and you go into the club or whatever it was on base, and we were like a mass unit, if I was going in and I saw a bunch of Marines, I'm a tough guy. I can hold my own. I would just leave because I would just get beat up. And people were like, oh no, they wouldn't beat you up. No, they beat you up. And they call you Air Force and they probably take your uniform. So I always got myself out of those situations immediately. I said, I'm not gonna be a tough guy against a Marine. Because Air Force people, we're all thinking, yeah, we're a team, but we all have our independent thought, right? We're all who's working on missiles, who's flying planes. Whatever it is, it's like there's independent thought. Marines have one thought. We're Marines. You're not. You die. We're good. Sorry to all those Marines out there, but it's kind of true. Yeah. But so did you ever go under the water? Is there any reasons you had to go under the water to build something or do something, or no? Are there divers?
No, I was actually based with EOD6, which had Navy SEALs on it in Charleston, South Carolina for a while, but I never had to.
Right. Are there people that do that?
Not within the Seabees.
No. Okay.
I did go diving in Australia.
Yeah. So, Glenn, when you were a CB, was it stressful?
No, because all I had to do was remember my CB handle, which in 1978 was a motor mouth. So different type of CBs, but it's the one I'm affiliated with.
Stephen, it was a pleasure to meet you the first time, and it was a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
So, as Glenn would say, give us you've earned a shameless plug.
That's right.
Tell people where they can find you or your company. And are you looking for employees?
Oh, we're always looking for employees. Great corporation, DelawareNorth.com. Great organization to be part of. A lot of fun.
Well, you know what? If you have jobs here in New York City, I have an insanely great kid that I'm mentoring who is literally, I would put my name on him 100 times. So I'm going to send you his resume if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I'm looking to get him out of a bad situation in a place he shouldn't be working because it's dangerous, but he's that kid. He'll do whatever he needs to do. So I will send you a resume.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Stephen, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
That was fun. I always love learning about different elements of
You didn't tell us how we can find him, did he?
Hold on. Let's bring him back. Do we know how to find you, Stephen?
You're talking DelawareNorth.com, I said. Yeah.
All right. There you go.
Right. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you later. All right. Thank God we did that. And since we're double checking on things, I'm very silly today. And since we're double downing on things, hey, why don't you drop us a line and not drop us a line, but just subscribe to the audio podcast, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, SoundCloud. You know where you get your shows. We are there. The only question I have for you is if you're listening to us, why not watch us? Watch us online where you like to watch us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, novacancynews.com. He's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. Tomorrow, we got the CEO of Extended Stay America, Greg Juseum, on for real this time. Very excited about that.
You know, it's so interesting. Before COVID, talking about things changing, he wasn't big man on campus. Now he's big man on campus. Extended Stay is everything. I think that's the first time I've ever told you to shut up on our podcast, so I apologize.
But the 12,000th time you've told me in our lives.
It's interesting. Together. Before, whatever you said that made me laugh, I had to literally pause the camera because I thought I was going to fall off the chair. I don't even know what you said. What you said? It was. Really
I don't
funny.
remember. I can't remember anything once it's out of my my mouth. All right, everybody. Remember, guys, you got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you all tomorrow.